Well, hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Baloney Podcast. We are your hosts, Sean and Lanette Reed.
What's up?
And we are helping you with strategies for your life so you can win. Any winners out there?
Yeah, no losers allowed on this
No
podcast.
losers allowed.
Only winners. We come to dominate. We come to rule. We come to reign. All right, guys, today we're going to talk about that struggle that exists in all of our lives.
What struggle?
The work-life balance.
Dun-dun-dun.
Because it's hard out here in these streets.
It is. It is.
When you work in
Yeah.
full-time gig, if you have family, the pressure of how much time is enough quality time. Then you have, if you're single, how much time can you put in for yourself?
Right.
How much time, if you're interested in a relationship, do you put towards, dating and different things of that nature? And we know how difficult that can be.
And we live in a culture and a society where we are driven to be highly successful in our endeavors over being successful in our relationships.
Yeah. And so when you consider, all that tension that exists, and then we're in Texas right now. So when we're dealing with traffic, it may take you 30, 45 minutes to get
Yes.
somewhere and an hour to get back.
It's true.
And so, a whole 2 hours of your day is just devoted to getting to work. Then you deal with all the drama of that. And there's only so much emotional energy that you have. So by the time you get back, how much of you is left for the people that matter the most?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, in our lives, we, especially early on, I began to work at a construction job. And so I would get up 5:30, 6 a.m. and be at the job site by 6:30. And I would work all the way until about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then, get home. And in my brain, after working in the sun, doing construction, I just wanted to rest. And my way of resting at that time was going to play basketball, or it was playing hours of video games.
You like your video games.
I love video games.
Yeah.
It is my way of,
What's your favorite video game?
oh, that's tough. Back then it was NBA Live. But I mean, shoot, you can go 2K right now. Spider-Man is still, it's one of the greatest games ever created on a PS5, period.
Well, I had a Nintendo growing up and I played Paperboy.
I used to like Paperboy back in the day.
Yeah.
That was the game, and so the problem was when you was playing Paperboy, you were a kid with no responsibilities. And when I was a master at NBA Live, I didn't have responsibilities, but then I had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And you and I were living in our apartment, and you were a stay-at-home mom. I'm working full time, and I just want to play video games and basketball. And that was problematic for you because on your side.
Absolutely. Because on my side, I was a stay-at-home mom to those 3 beautiful kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself should explain my workload and all that I had to do. And so we were also very active at church, but you being at work all day, I carried the load of just managing what needed to be done even at church. And so by the time you got home, I just wanted adult conversations, right? Mm-hmm. I just wanted to talk to my man, my boo, and just like stick the kids in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest.
And I didn't have many words at that point because I was just exhausted. So obviously there was a tension that existed there for you, yes, because you needed a grown up. And when I got home, I was tired of being a grown up. I just wanted to be a kid. And
I don't want to grow up.
I forgot the rest.
I'm a Toys R Us kid.
There's a million things in Toys R Us that I can play with. Okay.
Yeah.
So having said that, I think that there's it was a more obvious season, I think, for you and I then, that you should be able to have fun, but we needed to have quality time. But our kids were young, and so they needed time. And then I had to work because if I didn't work, I wouldn't go eat.
Yeah.
So like, what is the balance of how much time is enough time? and yet trying to maintain church on top of all of that stuff. There's some interesting statistics out there. One of them is that most an average right now between Americans aged 18 to 64 that use social media, they spend anywhere from 2 to 3 hours per day on social media.
Wow.
So we got time. And
2 to 3 hours a day on social media.
Either on a phone, a tablet, or a computer. Most people watching TV as leisure activity from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics says the average American watch TV for 2.8 hours a day.
I believe that. That's almost easier to believe than social media because the average television show is 30 minutes.
Right. And we binge watch now.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so if you put together news, if you put together your basic TV shows, whatever the case may be.
With the social media?
Exactly. That's
snap.
about a good.
That's a part-time job.
Yes. And how much time of that is away from family. So it wasn't, I think for me, looking back, if I was to grade my focus back then, it wasn't that I didn't have time. I had time. I didn't steward it well. And I think all of us, you got to think about it. Time is the one thing you need to steward like nothing else, because you can lose money, but you can get it back. I don't want to lose no money, but if I had to, I can earn it back. But time is that thing you cannot get back. The average person is going to watch, this is an amazing stat, they're going to watch an average of 9 years worth of TV, around 80,486 hours in their lifetime. 9 years of your life will be sitting down
watching
TV. And I'm not saying that TV is bad. Obviously, I love movies. One of my favorite things to do is to watch TV.
But like you said, everybody binge watches now, right? That's the way TV networks are actually set up.
And the problem with that is, especially when it comes to either raising kids or dating or being married, that's not necessarily quality time. Because essentially your focus is just trying to, nowadays we read the words on the screen because we can't hear anymore. So we got the we got the captions on. So we're reading TV with people, but we're not really discussing what we saw. We're not talking with one another. So the dialogue is very limited. So in the sense of connection, we have to really ask ourselves, what can we do with the time that we have to make it as meaningful as possible? So obviously social media is not evil in and of itself. TV is not even in and of itself. Me going and play basketball wasn't a bad thing. But when I did not prioritize the people or the person who mattered most in my life, obviously that was out of order. And so to snap young Sean back into alignment, I think I would have had to have defined freedom differently. Because to me, it seemed like my life was taken away in work, and I had to be at work. So it was a requirement, and I paid my dues, and then I went home. And to me, being out and playing on the court was freedom from responsibility. Playing the game was my ability to zone out and not think. It was like a pressure release for me. So then the interpretation I would say to young Sean would be, freedom can be with your wife having meaningful conversation.
And you can enjoy that.
And you can enjoy it if we would have structured it differently, as opposed to, I think sometimes my mindset back then would have been, oh, you want me to help clean? You want me to help cook? So it just seemed like to me, though, that was not freedom. That was more work.
Yes, I do. I think from my perspective, young Lanette, to talk to her now, I would say it is okay for Sean to have those moments of recreation. Yes, he can play the video game. Yes, he can go out and play ball with the guys. But at the same time, have a balance of when is it going to be my turn? Right. So I don't think I would tell Lanette, you don't have to close the door and lock it, and he can't spend any time away from you. because we totally believe in me time and having just the time to yourself to do whatever is needed for yourself. But I would say it has to be coupled with some prioritizing the relationship and then prioritizing even the relationship with the kids.
I think for guys, I can't speak for every guy, but for the majority of guys that are in a relationship at some point when it seems like he's being called into order by his wife, then at that point, she becomes like seen as an authoritative figure speaking down to him. And so
just go ahead and say it. We being like your mama.
It could be a mom or any authority figure that it just seems like, and it's just like at that point, there's almost this feeling of I'm being dishonored in my own home, which causes the dude to resent being at home.
And pull away.
Because a guy, for the most part, most guys want fun and they want a friend, somebody who will play the game with them, somebody who will go to the court and hang with them, somebody who is, kicking it and having fun with them as opposed to somebody who is their, home monitor.
Yeah. And I think a woman would want in her relationship, and again, not all women, but some women want someone who they could confide in and share emotional conversations with. Like they want a friend as well, but when a woman talks about a friend, there's different dynamics, right? So yes, it could include going out, hanging and kicking it, but it's also having being able to share sensitive conversations with, being emotional with someone, being loving and sensitive in that way of with someone. So it's interesting that we want the same thing, but in serve different ways.
Absolutely. Because as you described all that stuff, that sounded like work.
Well, it's not limited to all of that.
That just sounded like work. I was like, where?
Well, it was in addition to what you said. So
I get what you're saying. I think that the problem then was that it wasn't formatted. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a 15-minute conversation with Lanette to give her room to share with me her experience for the day. It just seemed like it was all over the place. And then at that point, I couldn't get my mind in the right frame of mind to be that for you. And so it just felt like another demand because I wasn't there. It wasn't organized like, okay, let's prioritize family. Let's prioritize one another in talking time and so on and so forth. So I think that was probably one of the biggest mistakes back then. So my challenge now would be to say, okay, what are the most important things that you need to do in order to snap your life into the most important priorities? And to me now, I would have to take an inventory of my time and look at it and say, okay, what are the most important things that we need to make sure that we're doing on a day-to-day basis? And if you have kids, depending on their age, they require different things.
They do. So
it's like I have to assess it in each season because it changes over time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They need hugs in one season and they need conversation in a different season. They need structure and training in a different season. So if you are doing all this hard work on the job for the kid, but you're never there with the kid,
what's the point?
They lose a parent, but they got a really nice house because you busting your tail to give them what you think they need.
Yeah.
And in reality, they can grow up in a great house without a father or mother to be there with them. And I think that in the long run, you have to ask yourself, like, is that worth it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, do you think that was a good exchange?
Yeah. That process of flipping the priorities, let's just say realigning the priorities. It took a while. But I would never forget a conversation that we had with our spiritual parents. And they were saying that we needed to, now this was a couple years later, but they were just saying that we needed to take vacations quarterly. And not family vacations, but this was just
You and I.
quick getaways with just the two of us. And those vacations didn't necessarily have to be major destinations, but they could be what we call staycations. You know, we live in DFW, so it could be going to Austin or Houston for the weekend or something. But that was something that was hard because we had never heard anyone of doing a quarterly vacation or
Right.
quarterly getaway. But man, I'm telling you, when we implemented it, it was so good. It was such a game changer. And honestly, it was like a breath of fresh air every time we went.
But the baloney mindset then, the limiting belief then, was we couldn't afford to do that. We don't have the time to do that. Where are we going to put the kids?
Babysitter.
We were worried about a babysitter. And now it's just like after we faced all of those fears, it's now just a normal part of our kids survived the babysitter.
Yeah. Well, I remember one vacation, we actually took a kid with us.
Yeah.
Because she was so tiny.
Brittany was so young at that time. And so, but it was several things that lined up to get us to that place of saying, yeah, we're going to take this quarterly vacation. We will find a babysitter. We will. All of those things got set in motion after, you know, we were instructed by our mentors to prioritize, you know, our marriage. So that, because if we weren't healthy, then the kids weren't going to be healthy and so on and so forth. So to me, when we think of it, there's this really cool quote that I think is like really good, but it's that things that matter most must never be at the mercy of the things that matter least. Things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. So when we start talking like work-life balance, you have to ask yourself, what are your most important priorities? And then you have to say, now in this season, in this place that we're in, what is the need? So going back to that space of, okay, I'm working from, 6:30 in the morning to 5:30. That's a guarantee. It's on lock. And then when I looked at my travel time and then travel time to get home, and then, yes, I still needed to do my exercise. And yes, I still needed to spend quality time with you. It is a lot. And yes, the house needed to be clean. Food needed to be cooked. Kids still needed to be talked to. I had time. I got 24 hours. Whatever God gave us in 24 hours, it had to have been enough. Otherwise, we're saying that, God, you didn't give us enough time. So,
or is it a matter of us mismanaging that time or us adding things on our plate that really shouldn't be there?
Absolutely. And I think that was what was happening in our particular case. I was stressed, and my way of relieving stress, per my definition in my brain, was to check out through sports and through gaming. But there were other ways to relieve stress. And that would have been to hold my kid or kids. And I did, but not enough. And then with you, we could have made conversations, adult conversations,
Come
fun.
on now. There's another way you can relieve stress.
Come on, somebody.
Well.
Yeah. And so prioritizing that, I think, would have been cool. Life didn't have to just happen to us. We could be intentional about how life happens. And that would have been wise stewardship of our time. So we have to get a grip on, all right, Lanette saying she needs more conversation. Don't take offense to it. All right, what do you want that to look like? And then we create some real unique ways to chat. Like one of the things that we're doing right now, we did it this week, was to sit down and play a board game.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was maybe 35, 40 minutes.
Yep.
But it was just real cool. It didn't take long.
It was quick. Yeah.
But it was quality time. And it was fun. But it was no screen on, no distraction, but it was just family sitting down, just having a good time. We have kids in different states right now. They're grown. And so what we do is a family FaceTime call, or WhatsApp call now, because Brandon moved to Australia. So we're all getting together.
Yeah.
We spend about an hour just prioritizing that. And we can't do that every day.
Right.
But once a week, we're trying to do that. And it just places value on what's most important. And I would just challenge everybody who's listening to think through, like, okay, what am I putting off for someday that I need to do today? And what are the things that I keep doing on a daily basis that really could be put off to the someday.
Yeah.
So like if I skip TV,
oh yeah, you can catch up. It'll be there.
It'll be there. The series will be there. We can catch up on that.
Yeah.
But I can't get back the years that I didn't have the meaningful conversations that I should have had.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things, and I would love for us, like later on in another podcast to like talk about parenting, because that's like really huge for me.
If y'all want that, y'all let us know in the comments if y'all want to have some parenting discussions, because we can do that if y'all want it. But if y'all don't want it, we ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, if you don't ask, well, we ain't gonna do it. But one of the things that I did probably when the kids were in middle school, I think I started this, was going into their individual rooms at different times and sitting down with them and having conversations with them 10 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to say that I did this every single day and I was perfect at it, but I did make it a point to do it as often as I remembered and as often as I could. And having those private conversations of just me and my son, or me and one of my daughters, and sitting down in their room, giving them space to talk, and then learning things and not correcting them when I learned it, but realizing that if they're sharing things with me, then they're feeling more comfortable with me. But to do that then, and to see the type of relationship that we have with them now, there's a direct correlation between the two.
Absolutely.
And so it really is, you have to make a decision to figure out, what do you want to be the priority in your life?
Yeah. And you have to then, I would say, again, like that was a really practical example of like, it didn't mean that you had to spend 2 hours talking to your kids every day.
Yeah.
It's almost like this huge lofty goal that is so unrealistic. But that was something that was more specific. It was narrow. It was realistic too.
It was very impactful.
Yeah. So it was like 15 minutes of intentional, vulnerable conversation and connection versus trying to force an hour-long conversation with a teenager when they got homework or they got practice after school or whatever the case may be. That 15 minutes is meaningful, especially when you go in and you lead with questions rather than going in and just talking about what they're not doing or critiquing them in their walk. So to me, that was real simple. There's a really interesting quote, and it just says, where there are no goals, neither will there be significant accomplishments. There will only be existence. There will only be existence.
Oh, wow. You would just be?
Because you're just taking life as it happens. And it's just kind of this, it'll be what it will be, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you have a part to play in this. You have a choice in saying what the culture of your home will be. You don't just have to tolerate whatever is happening.
Oh, man.
You get to determine the climate of your heart, your home, your attitude. So I couldn't control the fact that my 9 to 5 per se was in construction outside in the sun and doing what I had to do. I can't control if eventually that's pulling me away from my family if I apply for a different job.
Sure.
And eventually I did. And we started our own, so on and so forth. But my point with that is if you're in it right now, you got to make the most of where you are now. And you have to start setting some simple goals. And if that goal is a date night, if that goal is to start dating, you got to prioritize that time.
Well, I think the thing to realize is kind of like what you were saying, like figure out what's pulling you away, right? And change it if you can. If you do change it, you still have to, every season or every so often, you still have to realign to make sure you have your number one priority in the number one priority seat, because something will always try to pull you away. Mm-hmm. So if it is the job, right? Because we've just been talking about that, and you start your own, or you work at another job, don't think that that job isn't going to try to pull you away.
Right.
Or something else, because we have a habit of emptying our schedules and then subconsciously putting things in places that are void. And it's like, no, you remove that spot so that you can have more time with your family.
Yeah.
So you always have to check yourself. You always have to check your schedule.
So my encouragement to y'all would be to examine your life in 7 key areas. And that would be faith, family, finance, fun, your friends, your career, and your health.
They thought it was all F's.
I wish I could have made them all F's. I probably could, but for the sake of time, your faith.
I'm going to be thinking about it.
So your faith is obviously your spirituality.
Right.
How much time are you committing to tuning in, meditating on the word? You know, God doesn't need forever for you to be in the Bible for it to be effective, but you can chew on the word as you go throughout your day. On your drive to work, can you start listening to the word?
Yep.
On your way home, can you talk to the Lord and still drive at the same time? Maybe. So faith, then your family. How much time does each important person in your life need? What phone calls do you need to make? How frequently? How much is enough?
That's a hard one. Because like I always have to, I try to make it a point. Mondays are my days to connect with my mom, right? So born and raised in St. Louis, we're in Dallas now, or DFW now. So trying to maintain like conversations and long distance relationships, that's hard.
Yeah. But how much time is enough time?
Yeah.
And for some of y'all may have to say no to some people who want all your time because those in-laws are trying to pull you away from your new existence. Or you got some people that think that you're their emotional wastebasket. And even though you're trying to give them quality time, the time that you're giving them, they're abusing it. And so you're going to have to protect your mind space because your empathy level is so high and they keep, leaning on your bleeding heart and they're taking advantage of you. So that's a whole word for somebody.
I feel like you kind of went somewhere. Like,
I think I did. Yeah. And for all three of y'all who you received that, you need to let us know. You right. All right. So faith, then family, then finance. You know, how much time do you need to commit to budgeting or spending properly, et cetera, et cetera. Fun. You need to have some fun.
You should be having some fun.
Every day you should have some fun.
Whether you are single or married, or in between, engaged, I don't care what you're doing. You should be having some fun.
Yeah, when you said in between, I was like, what is in between single and married?
Engaged.
Engaged. Okay, all right. But I guess if you engaged, you ain't single no more.
Not till they put you say I do.
We'll have this conversation in another podcast.
Okay.
Because I need to know what in between is. So you got fun, then you got your friendships. Are you maintaining your friendships with people? What are your career goals? Because some of y'all need some serious career changes because you're miserable where you are, or your health.
Yeah.
Like, are you taking fitness? Duh. That's an F.
I was trying to find the F for career. That's the one I was focused on.
Like the field of work. No, that's not good.
No, that could totally work. Your field of work.
No, but field of work ain't the same. So if I say fitness, you know exactly what it is.
But if I say field of work, that's another phrase for occupation or career.
Nah.
Field of work.
I don't know. I needed the source right now, but I can't figure it out. But anyway, eventually we'll make this 7. But now if you take inventory of yours and you were to say right now, hey man, which one of those areas am I putting to the side? And am I at a place to where I'm just so overwhelmed or so driven in one area that for me, it was basketball and gaming, but for you, it may be the binge watching TV, or it may be the fact that you're allowing everybody to have their time and you have none to yourself.
Yeah.
You just ain't having fun. You ain't doing the stuff that you used to do. You used to do kickboxing. You gave it up because your kid had a new class that you had to drop them off for. And now you done gave up on all the fun you used to have. How do you get your fun back? So look at those 7 areas and ask yourself,
yes,
where am I? I'm mad that she ask yourself, what would it take for you to, and it don't have to be like I said, you might not be able to do kickboxing every day, but can you do it once a week just to get some of your fun back? If it's crocheting for somebody out there, all your crocheting people, can you do that twice a week?
Yeah.
Okay. If it's hooping and your knees is bad now, maybe you need to take up pickleball. I'm not doing pickleball because I feel like it is.
I have an issue with pickleball because I grew up playing tennis.
Oh, here we go.
How you gonna make another sport that is similar to another sport, give it a whole other name, use the same materials within the sport, right? You don't have a separate playing field.
Bring it back. Because she was really about it. And there's a nation of pickleballers now. So
well, I am amongst the nation of tennis players.
You have in 1 year 8,765 hours. 8,765 hours. Prioritize the time, because time can't be recovered. Once it's gone, it's gone. I want to challenge y'all to live based on a vision that prioritizes both work and life.
Yeah. And it can be done.
Yeah, it definitely can be done. Listen, we got a lot of resources available for y'all. And we want to help y'all in every way possible. So if it's your relationship right now is struggling and you really, really, really need some help when it comes to your relationship, y'all know we're marriage coaches. We have courses online that are designed to help you get breakthrough there. For some of you all, it's about hearing the voice of God, and you just really, really, really want to know his voice on a deeper level. We got a course for that. We have so many courses because we love teaching people. And so if y'all would like to connect with us, the description, the show notes has a link that you could click to, and it has all of our information available to where you can get plugged in with some of our resources. But we love equipping people, and we love to stay connected to y'all. So make sure that you like this. Make sure you rate this podcast. Make sure you share this bad boy and let the world know y'all take some clips of this thing and share it to your stories and your feeds, letting folks know about the Baloney Podcast.
There you go.
We'll see y'all next week.